Hello everyone, my name is Meet Shah. In this video, we're going to cover how to integrate Twitter API into iOS application. We will use Objective-C as our programming language. So we will create a new Xcode project and we'll pull in Twitter SDK for iOS using Cocoa Port's package manager. And then we will implement the three core Twitter APIs. First is to authenticate a user using their Twitter account. So you might have seen on many applications login page where it shows like login with Facebook or login with Twitter. So that's what we're going to implement today. The second thing is we're going to implement the compose tweet where we will able to create the tweet in our application. We can write whatever we want and we will tweet it and the tweet will show up on our timeline. We will also tweet the image and it should show up on our timeline. And the third thing we will do is call the REST API of Twitter, and we will fetch all the tweets from the timeline, and we'll show it in our app in our table view format. The good thing is we don't have to do any UI work for this. Um, if the user has any image in a tweet, we don't have to worry about how that image will render in a mobile device, or we don't have to deal with any auto layout because using the Twitter API kit, it does a job for us. So to get started, I'm going to create a new Xcode project and it will be the single view application. I'm going to name it Twitter integration. Sorry, with iOS. I'll save it on my desktop. Next thing I want to do is open my terminal and go to my project directory. I'm going to do pod init. Pod is a command for the Cocoa Pods. If you don't have Cocoa Pods installed, you can go to their website cocoapods.org and use a command to install using the command line. So it's just a one-step process. So back to our terminal. Once we do pod init, it's going to create a pod file, and I'm going to use a nano editor to edit the pod file. So back to our Twitter documentation. If you walk through the installation, first thing they ask is to register our app on a Twitter dashboard. So let's do that. And I'm going to say create a new app. I'm going to name it Twitter integration with iOS 1 demo Twitter integration with iOS. And for the website URL, I have a GitHub repository which is going to have the code base that we're going to walk through today with the Cocoa Power, so Twitter Kit pulled in, and with the three APIs that we're going to implement today. So if you want to check out the project here later, you can do as well. I will share the GitHub repository link here with the video. So I'm going to use my GitHub's URL as my website URL for now. I'm going to say yes, I accept, and it's going to create an application for us. And the two things that we want for app to implement the API is a consumer key and the secret key. So let's take this key, and so one thing we want to do before we move forward is go back to our Twitter documentation. So we register our application. Next thing we want to do is install TwitterKit using Cocoa Pods. And so we want to do is take this and put in our pod file. I want to remove the platform. I'm going to say 11. You can also see they have uncommented the use frameworks, so which is we have it commented out. So I'm going to remove it. And we do Control X, save it, yes, and I'll do pod install. And it's going to install the Twitter kit. So using the Cocoa Powers, one thing we want to make sure is we don't use our Xcode project going forward. So back to my desktop project directory, you can see this was our Xcode project, and the Cocoa Powers created the workspace for us. So going forward, we used to use the workspace, and it has our application project file, and it has the pods. Under pods is the Twitter Kit and Twitter Core. So now we can work on our project um, from the workspace directly. So let me quickly clear up the project because it comes with a lot of default files. I don't like to use a storyboard, so I'm going to delete those. And since we don't need a storyboard, I'm going to delete it from the info.p file. Next thing I want to do is organize the files that we have. Call it app delegate, and these two will go under view controllers. Okay, and we're going to create a new own view controller, so we don't need these default ones here. So next thing we want to do is we want to add the consumer key and secret key in our app. So let's create the plist property list file where we will put our consumer key and the secret key. I'm going to call it Twitter consumer key. Oops, sorry. And this will be this guy here. And the second thing is Twitter secret key. Alright. So next thing we want to do is go back to our app delegate, and we want to read these files. So we need to property strong. Now I have to make Twitter consumer key. Now I have to make now go back to app delegate, and we want to modify our launch option method to say software window UI window allocate init with frame. It should be the frame will be the main screen of the device. I'm going to do it bounds. Okay. Next thing we want to do is read the property list file. So I'm going to do bundle, main bundle, and then path for resource. The type is our plist property list file, and the file name is property list. Next thing you want to do is read the values from the property list. Set variant is dictionary location unit with content of file, which will be our property list file. Let me synthesize our strings here that we created in our header file. So now we have values from property list. We want to do Twitter consumer key equal to and Twitter secret key. And let me grab the keys from the plist file. So this will be our consumer key, and this will be a secret key. Okay, so now we have our consumer key and secret key. Let's go back to our app. So we don't need a Twitter apps dashboard. So we go back to our, the documentation, and it says the next step is to initialize the Twitter kit, and for that we have to edit this in our app did finish launching option. So let's do that. So first, before that, we want to import the Twitter kit. And Twitter, and let's do Twitter shared instance. Start with consumer key, which will be sorry, so that will be consumer key, and here will be our secret key. So this will initiate the Twitter kit upon a launch of the application. One more thing we want to do is implement the callback method, so which will get called when the Twitter authenticate the user and will call back our application to open the application. So this will be sorry, application open URL, and we want to do is Twitter shared instance application app URL options. Okay, so back to the documentation. The next step they say is configure our plist file, and we have to define the URL scheme for the Twitter kit. So uh, let's go to our info plist and let's create the URL scheme. So I'm going to create a new one here. Scroll all the way down. You have the URL types, and under URL types you want to go item 0 URL identifier, and we'll create a URL scheme here. And under URL scheme you have item 0, and this is where it will be this value here, the Twitter kit dash our consumer key. So let me grab consumer key from here and put it here. Okay, so that take care of the URL scheme. The next thing that the Twitter needs is the entry of this query scheme. So let's create a new one. I'm going to do this, and it's an array, so I'm going to change this to an array. And the two things in array, one is Twitter, so add one here. Let's call it Twitter. Another is Twitter auth. So create another one, call it Twitter auth. Okay, so that take care of configuring our plist. Now let's go back to our app delegate and let's create a view controller. We're going to call it the login view controller. That will be the first view controller will show up as app launch. I'm going to click next, create. All right. Now, so we can start with login with Twitter option here. The next step, and it talks about all this, like how it's going to do it, and it will show you like the screen view when the Twitter will verify the user. So we want to implement the login button. So they have very nicely documented the APIs for Objective-C as well as Swift. So we're going to just basically take this whole code and we're going to put it under view.load method here. And since we haven't imported the Twitter kit, is going to complain about I couldn't find it. So let's import it login button here. I'm going to put the breakpoint. We need, so if I go ahead and run the project, looks like I have to lower the version here. If I go ahead and run this project, hold on, so before we do that, we need to tell our app delegate method to how to launch will be the first view to launch. So let's import the login view controller. Import the login view controller. I'm going to initialize. Sorry, login controller allocation. Init with a name and bundle will be new. And the name of the new file is same as our view controller. They all have the same name, so we can just name it that way. And next we want to tell a window that our root view controller is our login view controller. I'm going to do self.window make invisible. Okay, so that's what we need. So if I go ahead and run this one, let me share my phone here. You can see the app is installed. It launch and you can see the login button here in the middle of the screen because that's how we have defined in our login view controller. Login button is center on the view center position. So now once we tap on it, you can see click connect and it brings us back to our app, and you can see the breakpoint hit under session. And once I click next, you can see it's bring up a session. The username is my login ID for the Twitter. So that's how we verify the Twitter has successfully authenticated user for our application. Our documentation for Twitter API. So we did this one and we implement the login button and we successfully log in the user, and this is where it talks about the login redirect which we already did in our app delegate. We implement this redirect URL here, so that handles this stuff, and this is what we already have. So that's conclude our first authenticating user with Twitter account. So next thing we want to do is compose tweet. So for that, let's go back to our Xcode project, and we're going to create a new view controller, and we're going to call it my tweets view controller, and it to be UI table view controller. I do want to create XIP. Click next. Okay. So here under view did load, we want to add the UI bar button. So it'll be bar button item location, init with bar button style. I would say compose. Sorry. Yep. Target self and selector will define in a minute. I'm going to do self dot navigation item, right button item will be our button item. To implement is configuring the composer, and here's the method to compose the tweet in the app. This is for the Objective-C. So we're going to write the helper method here. I'm going to say void compose tweet. I'm going to paste this whole code here. So then the selector for the bar button item will be compose tweet. So when somebody will click on the button item, is going to open this user interface that comes by default with the Twitter API, and we can write and we can tweet from the app. So thing looks like it's complaining because we haven't imported the Twitter kit. TWTR composer, and we don't want to do image right now. So that's all it needs to create a composer for the tweet. So let's go back to the login view controller, and what we want to do is once the user logged in successfully, we want to navigate to the our my tweets page. So let's do import my tweets view controller. Um, controller location. Init with a new file. The name of the new file is same as the view controller, and call nil. And we want to make it as for the UI navigation controller. So navigation controller location. Init with root view controller, which would be our tweets view controller. And then we're going to do is serve push. So it will be the present, and we're going to do is present now controller. Yes, completion. We don't need to do anything in a completion. So this basically what's going to do is once the user type on login button, get authenticated using Twitter, comes back here, and once it's authenticated, we will initiate the my tweets table view controller. So basically taking user to the next page from the login page. So and so let's run the project. Um, so it launch. We're going to do login with Twitter. Comes back. The app comes back to our application. You can see login as our user, and we are initiating the my tweets view controller. So this is our my tweets view, and you can see it comes with the right bar button item. And once we tap on it, it's going to show the tweet composer view as the Twitter as a demo here. On the button, you can see it open the tweet composer. And I'm going to say just setting up my Twitter kit for demo. I'm just going to hit tweet, and you can see here it says sending tweet successfully. So if you go to our Twitter timeline, we can see the tweet here. Just setting up my Twitter kit for demo. So that's it. Pretty cool. We just tweet to our Twitter timeline from our application. So next thing we want to do is we want to fetch all these tweets that you are seeing on the timeline, and we will display it in our table view here. So all these cells will be populated with all our tweets, and including the images that you see here. So let's work on it. API to fetch all the tweets. Let's go back to the documentation and let's review how to do it. So to access Twitter's API, first thing we have to do is We used to use their authentication API protocol to first authenticate our user, and it's called application only authentication. And we're going to go to application only authentication, and here it describes how to get authenticated with Twitter using auth 2. So here's the steps that Twitter is suggesting: that we have to encode our consumer key and the secret key, and then append, and then we have to convert it into base 64 uh, encoding. And once it's done, we have to make the post method call, passing all this as a header, and in return the Twitter will give us the response with the access token. This is the access token that we will need to make any REST call. So this is just a first step to get the token from the Twitter. And once we get the token, we can um, go to a tweet timelines, and it says get call for the user timeline, and here's a URL, and we can pass all these different parameters. But they have one example, like we have the screen name here, so we can just follow this get request URL, and we will replace this screen name with our screen name. But even to call this get request, we need first to get access token, and then only we'll be able to make call, and in return the Twitter will return all this response of tweets with all the IDs and images and everything. So let's go back to auth. So here is to be a lot of coding, so I'm going to do some copy and paste from my existing project, and we already implemented the compose tweet. So we want to do is copy this whole code and copy over to, sorry, not here, up to get token. So this basically makes a API call for the post call to Twitter, and it does all these the basic base 64 encoding, and using an NSURL session to make a call, and in return if you get the response back, is grabbing that access token from the response object. So seems like it's complaining about a few things. Looks like I need a consumer key. So the way we're going to the consumer key and the secret keys are app delegate. So let's reference to our app delegate here. We could do app delegate, and paste our, we're going to synthesize it, and then do app delegate application, shared application delegate, and then we'll cast it as our app delegate. Okay, so now this app delegate has our Twitter, sorry, this will be the consumer key, this will be the secret key. So I'm basically encoding the consumer key and secret key, and then I'm combining with the colon. So let's go back to our that instruction here. So application only authentication, and here's basically what I'm doing is following these steps. Um, we do the RFC 17038 encoding, and we concatenate both with the colon, and then we're going to do base 64 encoding. So we encoding, then we are combining two strings with the colon, and then we are doing base 64 encoding. And next we want to do, we are creating the request with this is the URL, and it's these steps here, set all the authorization, the headers, and that's what we're doing, set the authorization and the other two headers, and or the body of the post method will be the request type is the grant type is the credentials. So once it does that, um, let's put the breakpoint here, and then I want to call this method on my uh, view did appear. Animated and call get access token. Okay, so if I put a breakpoint here, let's run the project. This is my mobile app. I'm going to log in, get authenticated, and comes back to the app. We have our composer. Oh, sorry. So now we are on the breakpoint here, and click next. And you can see the data come back. I'm going to use the JSON deserialization to convert into dictionary. Let me clear this. And you can see we got the response back as the Twitter has documented. The response be the token type barrier and one big access token. So we got our access token. Now we can use this access token to make any of our API calls. So if you go to tweets, and there's all these different type of API call we can do, and all we have to do is just pass that access token as a header, as the authentication header. So what we're going to do is go to tweets, and we're going to pull all the tweets from user timeline, and we basically make the get request call to this URL, and we'll swap the screen name with our screen name. So pretty trivial. So I have a code here. Um, Let me just copy. In our application, in our project, I will say just go ahead and run it. Okay, and I'm going to put that code here. So what we're doing is once we get our access token, we will be called this method to say now get my tweets, and we'll pass that access token here. So once we get our token successfully, we will call that, make that call request. So it looks like it needs few things here. So we need a Twitter and API client. So let's import both Twitter kit, and another one is API client. Okay, and then so we are composing, we're creating the client using our user ID from our session. It looks like the app delegate needs a Twitter API URL. So let me grab that URL from here, from our property list file. So it's the same URL, and we're going to put this in our property list file. I'm going to call it Twitter REST API URL, and we'll read this one here. So the same way how we're reading the consumer key and the secret key. So I'm going to call it a string Twitter REST API URL, and go back to my app delegate. We want to synthesize it, and then read it from the property list file, which would be dictionary value for key. Just make sure that I got the right one. So app delegate. Okay. So now back to our my tweets view controller, we can do Twitter REST API URL. So this will bring us, this will pull the URL from the property list file. And from here is just the same stuff. We're creating the request, it's a GET request, and we are passing the header, authorization header, passing our access token, and then we will use NSURL session to make a call. From here we got the tweets back, and then we're going to put that tweets in an NS mutable array. So let's create that array. Mutable strong mutable array. Here we call it tweets array, and go up here. I'm going to synthesize. Oops, come on. All right, and then I'm going to location init. Okay. Looks like he's also complaining about the Twitter tweet user. So let's import that as well. Tutor-kit twtr user. So you should have it there now. Um, we have a tweets array. So once we get, so let's put the breakpoint here and see how it goes from here. So we run the project. See, we have few. Okay, so this is complaining about some of the delegate methods of the table view. Number of rows. So the application launch, we're going to authenticate, go back to user, and so we know that we are getting the access token. There's one big con, and then we're going to do is get my tweets, and so that's our URL string. Yeah, and now we swap the screen name with our screen name, and then we're going to make call out using our NSURL session. We got the data back. We deserialize using JSON serialization. And so let's take a look at the data first. So we have 8 tweets. So you can see the REST API is sending all these metadata about our tweets, including the ID. So that's what we're going to use. All we need right now is just the ID of the tweet, and we have this temporary tweets ID array. We're going to put all the IDs in there, and then we're going to make one more call to a Twitter API. It's called load tweet with IDs, and we're going to pass all the IDs here. So now you make a call out, and we got the tweets back. You can see these are 8 tweets, and they're all in object of twtr tweet. And we're going to put that in our tweets array, the main the array that we're going to use to load our table view. So at this point, the fetching the tweets from the Twitter is complete. All we will do is configure our UI table view cell to show that tweet. So our number of section 1, the count will be whatever the count of the tweets, and let's configure the table view cell. So here we are basically telling Twitter table view cell to we're basically telling the table view cell to use the Twitter table view cell. So we don't have to create a cell and XIB, and we don't do all those auto layout stuff. This thing just take care of itself. Looks like it's complaining about the table view, so let's import that. To duplicate twtr. I don't know if I get it right. Okay. Yep. Okay. So before we configure, there's one more thing we to do on the view to load is we to register that class. So let's do self table view, and we're going to call estimate the row height as 150. Then we do self table view. We do row height equal to UI table view automatic dimensions. It can adjust as it needed, and to allow selection false, we can register the table view class, a table view cell class. So register class, which will be trw trw tweet. I never get this right. So twtr. Huh. twtr tweet here class, and then I'm going to use for the cell identifier I have defined here, which is tweet table use. So we have to keep the same here. So that's all we need, looks like. And to the delegate, so it looks like I have to define the delegate here. We're not going to use it, but just sick of completing the code. Twitter kit twtr tweet view delegate and tr tweet delegate. Okay, so let's run the project. Build succeed. I want to put breakpoint here. Okay, so same stuff, login, authenticate, comes back. We got a token, and we got 8 tweets in our tweets array, and I'm just basically telling table to reload the data and see what the app looks like. So there you go. Pretty cool. You can see all the tweets from the user timeline, and you can see we didn't create any of this XIB, the Twitter, the table view cell, the Twitter tweet view cell. Just take care of it, and it adjusts the row height as it needs. So I post the image a while back, so you can see the image nicely here and all these different tweets. Um, one thing we didn't do is we didn't tweet the image. So let's try that. Let me try here. Let's go to our the compose tweet, and there's a method here called set image, and I commented out. So let's tweet some image here. So I'm going to do is Charlie Chaplin. I'm going to save it to downloads. Sorry, so that would be this guy, and then to save it as a downloads. Okay, so now I have Mr. Charlie Chaplin here. I'm going to put it into my let's create the resource folder here. And I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to add that file. Okay, and now we have this file. We're going to tweet it to our timeline. So we'll run the project again. We got our tweets. Let's tap on the composer button here with the JPEG file. So we're going to not tweet Mr. Charlie, and we're going to tweet the Mickey Mouse, which is .png file. And if I tap on the composer button, you can see the one big composer screen with the text and with our Mickey Mouse image. And once I tap on tweet, um, tweet successful, sending tweet. And if I go to my Twitter account, it says see one new tweet, and you can see the image of the Charlie Chaplin, sorry, the Mickey Mouse here. So that's how we successfully tweeted the image along with the tweet. So that's it. That's conclude our today's video. We cover pretty much core stuff about the Twitter API. Again, here's a GitHub repository of all we did today. I'm going to share it with the YouTube video, so feel free to check it out. If you found any issues or if you have any question, feel free to comment on the video, or you can come here on the GitHub and open the issues, and I will try to respond back to you as soon as possible. So thank you very much.